Talking about being male and what it's like and what we might be doing wrong. And can we take a look at how we're behaving and the roles we're expected to play and what it's doing to us?
I think the one way I really feel privileged as a woman is that I can show how I feel. And men, when I think of most men, most of my men friends, they can go through an entire lifetime and never show their friends how they feel. Never kiss or hug or touch. And what a difference. And if we could just breathe in.
When did this awareness come to you?
I think probably in the last 5 years.
Was there anything, you know, did you see your husband getting tired, or was there...
I'll tell you, I went to a funeral, an Italian funeral, and the men hugged and kissed, and I thought to myself, my friends never do that. They never touch each other. The men never touch.
Yeah, and even that hugging and kissing is not everything either, because, you know, you can have hugging and kissing without really having transparent, intimate contact. In other words, there still can be lots of feelings that never get displayed because they're not macho enough.
Over here.
I think I'd have to agree with you, and I think it's also with the woman's movement. It's hard for a man to react to you and your aggressions or your desires. Now, I married a man who was very understanding, and when we first got married, he did many things to me that were very out of context, I felt, because he would cry before I did in the movie. And he has a job that is a 40-hour-a-week job, so he can come home and play with his toys. He has hobbies, and he's not interested in being aggressive and working at a job where I think, wow, I thought he was supposed to go out and really have the drive, where that's more
Did
what...
this bother you at the first?
I thought it was kind of strange, but I'm a very aggressive person, and we match pretty well just because I am the one who, I hold the job that's a traditional man's job. And I'm a very aggressive person, so we do match because he's more of a emotional type person, and he will cry and he will take care of the children sympathetic wise before I will.
Yeah. Well, that's, you know, we ought to...
The thing that we've attributed to masculinity and femininity are really human things. For example, feelings are neither masculine or feminine. We've labeled them so. Aggression is neither masculine or feminine. We've labeled it so. Dependency, sleeping. Even sleeping is feminine. You know that if you want to embarrass a guy, call him up at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon and say, I hope I didn't wake you up from a nap. I wasn't sleeping.
Because there aren't individuals anymore, you know, and the more that we have these shows, the more concerned or confused I get. Because first women were supposed to be Miss Feminine, no opinion, you know, and the male was the macho, okay? And now we're turning around and saying, you know, the men have to cry and they have to stay home from work. The women have to be aggressive. You know, where is... I mean, that isn't what we're saying, but we keep bringing that out. There has to be an individual. Like, maybe I'm a little bit of a crybaby. Well, that's me. And maybe you are, male or female, but that is just the way it is. Yeah. Or maybe somebody, like you said, you're very aggressive.
Well, the question we have to ask ourselves is, are we behaving according to the way that society expects us to behave, and is that behavior necessarily good for us and consistent with what is essentially our own personality? That's
the way we want to behave.
Yeah.
Yes, right. If it's acceptable to anyone else or not.
Right. Have you changed any kind of...
Oh, my ideas from your show, yes. I didn't know what was going on in the world, but I really, you know, a lot of things that I've seen. Well, I understand.
You look back at high school.
Oh, everything was either straight or it wasn't straight. There was no in between, and you didn't question it, really.
Did you ever call a boy and ask him for out?
Never, and never picked one up and dropped him off either, but...
Yeah. So when the prom time came, you had to sit and wait for the phone to ring.
How unfair.
Isn't it?
Yes. They shouldn't have proms as couples. They should be single dances that everyone goes to. You shouldn't have to have a
that's an interesting point.
Right. Really, should be
an interesting point. Think about it now. Think of the women who carry that pain through life. The rejection and the feeling, the ugly duckly feeling that must go with not having been called. And yet every guy, the ones with B.O., could have a date.
Yeah, but I remember the guys clustered around the telephone in a college boarding house and standing there practicing how they were going to say hello and how they were going to ask her for a date. Yeah. And there was no way that we could offer each other any support, but we were all going through all kinds of agony just to
What's troubling you about this, Herb?
No, I was going to ask you, how did it feel to you not being able to go out and get what you wanted rather than having to wait?
I don't think I ever thought about it because we weren't told then you were supposed to think about it, you know? I mean, it only
Did you
came
have
up
any
now.
feelings about it?
Oh,
Did
I
it make
think
you feel angry,
completely
resentful?
unfair. I'm sure there were a lot of men that called women that were turned down that felt just as put out as we did. But I think it's better this way. I mean,
But the suggestion, I think, of the question, pardon me, is that there just might be in the souls of millions of women a lot of resentment, unexpressed.
absolutely.
And I think that resentment is on both sides, except that it's apparently more socially acceptable for women to release it than for a man to say, you know, I'm really angry about this relationship with the women I'm involved with.
I'm wondering how you feel about the book, The Total Woman.
I have extremely negative feelings about it because I have very negative feelings because it really, to me, the total woman concept really encourages women to be manipulators of men and also, in many ways, to deceive men. You know, for a woman to feel it's her role to tell the man that he's wonderful, to build up his ego, all of that is fine if she really feels it. But if she doesn't feel it, it's going to create a lot of confused double messages and even more anger inside of herself, or she'll get sick.
Dennis Gilbert is also with Free Men. How do you meet once a week?
No, we're not a consciousness-raising group. We're a men's liberation education organization. We were formed about 2.5 years ago. And we were formed by a number of men who had previously been in a consciousness-raising group.
Where?
In Columbia, Maryland.
Yeah.
And we came to realize that the consciousness-raising group and men and women weren't answering some of the problems that that there were some problems, there was some disjointedness in our life that men and women weren't answering.
You're married and have 2 daughters.
Yes, that's correct.
Can you just, I guess I'm just curious to know what makes one man make this jump, you know? You can't get a guy out of the house on Monday night because of football. Do you know what I mean? It's unusual for a man to exercise this initiative.
Well, I think there was an internal pain for me, and that was the motivation.
And was the pain focused or?
No, it was a very amorphous pain. I think what's happened is very much like the women's movement 5 or 10 years ago. A lot of women were dissatisfied with their lives and didn't know where to go with it. But then the women's movement came along, and then there was an articulation of what the problems were. I think now the men's movement is facing a very similar situation, in which men are dissatisfied with their lives. They're dying earlier than women. There's all sorts of dissatisfaction with their lives. They don't know where to go with it. We of Free Men believe that a lot of these problems are at least sexism and stereotype based, and that's what we're hoping to address.
And we'll be back in just a moment.